Welcome back to the Time for Heroes podcast. Before we start the podcast today, I'd like to take the time to dedicate this episode to a previous guest. In episode 36, I spoke to Pete Jones, who, as well as playing bass in Kill City, also found the time to write Kids in the Riot, The High and Low with the Libertines. As well as this, he made a fantastic film about his footballing hero John Toshak. Sadly, on the 26th of May, Pete's beautiful wife Emma passed away far too soon. This episode is dedicated to Pete and Emma. Forever in my thoughts, and always here if you need me. God bless. Right, welcome back to the podcast. This week's guest is Billy Bibby, who was lead guitarist in Catfish and The Bottlemen at the start. Before he left them, he now fronts Billy Bibby and the Wry Smiles, and he's also played in HAiG as well, amongst other things. We're going to delve into all of that. But before we do that, I'd just like to go back to the start and where he grew up and what life was like for a young Billy.
Hi everyone. Yeah, basically, my dad was from Bury. My mum's from Stockport. So around that Manchester area. They met on my dad was a driver for the National Express. And then my mum worked on the National Express as well, and they met there, and then I came along, and I was born in Accrington in Lancashire, near Blackburn, Accrington Stanley,
right?
So I spent the first 8 years of my life in Accrington with my mum, dad, and my brother Stephen. It was good. I mean, we didn't have any, sort of issues growing up. We were brought up well. And my dad had this flower business, so he'd deliver flowers. He'd have like a transit van, and he'd go out and deliver flowers to petrol stations.
Right.
So before they had the big companies and that would go and deliver the flowers. When you get the flowers when you in the forecourt at the petrol station. So we'd go and deliver them locally to about 30, 40 petrol stations or whatever every day. And that was his business. So he was kind of working hard at that. I didn't see him that much because he was obviously working. He'd get up at 4 a.m, 5 a.m, and then he'd be off, and then he wouldn't get back until like 6. So he was working all hours trying to, obviously put food on the table for us.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst my mum was just looking after me and my brother. It was good. It was good growing up in Lancashire. I really enjoyed it as a kid. And then we used to go on holidays to Llandudno on the weekend. So we never really went abroad or anything like that as kids until it wasn't until about 7 when we went to Mallorca. But before that, we went to Llandudno or Llandudno as the Welsh call it. So we'd do that on the weekend, and for us as kids, you'd think it was, you'd think you were going abroad because you'd see the sea. As soon as you'd see the seaside, you'd be getting excited, so we used to love going there in the summer holidays and stuff, and in the Easter holidays, and then one day my mum and dad said we're going to move to Llandudno. So we were like, we were buzzing because we thought, obviously you just have the good memories from the holidays and stuff like that. So you're like, oh, we're gonna live by the sea forever. So it's amazing. It's amazing at 8 years old. You think it's going to be amazing, but the business was they were buying a bed and breakfast on the seafront. So that was what they wanted to do. That he sold the business for that he was doing with the flower business, and then they had enough money to buy a bed and breakfast on the seafront. So they got that, and then again, it wasn't like as you imagine it as a kid. Obviously, it's not like a holiday. Again, when you move there, you miss your friends and stuff and all that, and you've got to settle into a new school. And you obviously your parents are working because they're running the business, a hotel business, so they're just like, go and play on the beach, and then by the time you've played on the beach about 20, 30 times, it gets a bit boring after a bit. So it means so many times you can throw stones in the sea. So it's like so it was one of them. The novelty wore off quite quickly, and you realize that there's a lot of hard work obviously that goes into running a business like a hotel. So it was it was good once we'd settled in, once we got some new friends and stuff, we enjoyed it. But yeah, so then that was the early part of life, and then I picked up the guitar when I was 12. So yeah, I think it was at 12, yeah, about 12 years old.
Was there any other musical stuff going on in the family?
Yeah, my dad was very musical. He had a record player that he'd play all the time with Elvis. He was a massive Elvis fan, huge Elvis fan, and that's kind of rubbed off on me. I think it does with a lot of people that they kind of a lot of them have when you're brought up with listening to your parents' music, it kind of rubs off on you, and you kind of you either like it or you loathe it. I think because you either heard it too much and then you go your own way and listen to your own thing, or you really sort of just get inspired and it feels almost like home when you listen to it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my dad was the Beatles. A lot of the '60s stuff that I get into through my dad.
Yeah.
But another thing that he was a sucker for like the novelty singles and all that. See, like Mr. Blobby and the Emmerdale, the Woolpackers, stuff like that. So he'd rip the arse out of their hands and all. So mine was quite balanced as well. Some it was all right, some it was really good, and then you had all that stuff.
That's it. Yeah, you can't. There was a few bits and pieces here and there, but he was a big Beatles fan as well. So he played the Beatles, Elvis, all the sort of '60s Merseybeat bands. So the Searchers and all those kind. I used to love the Searchers as well, even though they were not many people probably would know who they are now at my age anyway. But I used to love the Searchers and that, and Billy Fury. I'm named after Billy Fury basically. So and my middle name's Elvis's middle name. So I mean, if my dad had his way, he probably would have called me Elvis, but my mum wasn't having it. So we went with Billy Fury. But yeah, so he just had all the records. You just constantly be listening to him. And then my granddad was a carpenter, so the first guitar I ever had was a replica of like Hank Marvin's red Stratocaster, his red Fender Stratocaster. So he built one, and then he didn't put strings on it. They were sort of like just string, and I was just pretending to play, and that was the first sort of I've got pictures of me first playing that and singing away.
You still got that?
I've still got it. Yeah. It's literally just in the room over there.
That'd be priceless, wouldn't it? That sort of memory.
Yeah, it's I put a picture of it on social media a few years back, next to the guitar that I recorded on the balcony, the first Catfish album. So it just like a reminder, of where you sort of start and how things go from that to that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was the first guitar, and I've still got it. And then yeah, I started when I was about 12. When we moved over, I started in school, and I remember being in the lessons with two of my best mates, and they thought they were amazing playing these songs.
Uh-huh.
And they'd been learning for like 2 years, and they were like, "Oh, you'll never be as good as us. You'll never be as good as us." And within about a month, um, I was playing songs and singing, and the guitar teacher was like, "Where have you learned that?" And I was like, "Well, I've just practiced." You know what I mean? I've just because my best mates, they wouldn't practice. They just go to lessons
Hmm.
once a week for an hour a week, which is nothing really. You know what I mean? You've got to practice if you want to play. You got to practice. Every minute of the day when you're that age.
Yeah,
So that's what as soon as I picked up a guitar, I was doing that, and within a few weeks, I was better than them. And it was, I don't profess to be a great guitarist now, but I think it's just the amount of hours you put in is what you get out of it, isn't it? Really. So it's um,
yeah.
it's one of them, and I knew from then that that was going to be what I wanted to do.
I,
So it
I
was.
think you need
I
to
just
have the
loved it.
mindset though, didn't you? Because like
Yeah.
obviously I've got pals that play guitar to varying degrees of success. Obviously I've got pals in bands. I've got pals that play pubs and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
they're all really talented. And again, like you mentioning guitar lessons, I went to guitar lessons about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I went to 3 lessons, and I was going in, and there was a wee boy in before me, like he was booked the hour before me. So three weeks in a row, I was going and listening to him. He was playing like Led Zeppelin, and he
Hmm.
was playing like full songs, Led Zeppelin and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was I was learning the first 30 seconds, the Libertines Tell the King,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was it was just like it was torture for me. And
Yeah.
then seeing this wee boy
Yeah.
rap off Jimmy Page, and I thought I can't do that. I can't compete with that. I think you've either got it or you haven't. There's just
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, you have to a certain extent. I think it can be off-putting to other people when you get someone like that in. It comes just start shredding, and
yeah,
I mean, I wasn't one of them really. I've always been more of a sort of singer songwriter kind of guitarist. You know what I mean? Not. I was more sort of in a way sort of forced to play the lead parts in the Catfish because we'll come on to it more as we talk about sort of starting Catfish, but that was um in the early days of Catfish. I was writing songs and Van was writing songs, and it was more like a Carl Barat sort of Pete Doherty
okay.
kind of thing in the first few years of existence of Catfish. So
Mm-hmm.
it took quite a different turn to what we were. Do you know what I mean? And what people recognise now as Catfish. Do you know what I mean? It was quite a different story back in at the start,
Yeah,
musically and the way we sort of went about writing. But yeah, so it was just from a young age, I knew it was going to be the thing that I wanted to do. But I did get into sport, and I've always been a massive massive football fan. I love all sports though. I love tennis. I love snooker. I love Formula One. I just love sport.
mm-hmm.
But football was the main one, and for a few years between sort of the age of 13 and say 17, football was probably ahead of guitar
Yeah,
and music because at that age you don't really know how to sort of create a band. When you're sort of 13, 14, you're just kind of playing at home. And I had like a karaoke machine with two tape decks, and
mm-hmm.
I'd just press record on them and just record loads of covers and just pretend I was doing a concert for like an hour. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the early sort of start of recording. Once I was able to sing and play guitar at the same time. So in the hotel, going back to my mum and dad owning the bed and breakfast, the first gig I ever did was in the hotel.
Right.
So I'd put a little note through everyone's door saying there's going to be a concert at 7 o'clock down in the lobby or the lounge or whatever. And I'd set up my karaoke machine, with my little Fender amp and my Hank Marvin, not the old one, a proper one, like a Squire one,
Uh-huh.
Hank Marvin Stratocaster. And I'd do a show for them for an hour. You know what I mean? And my mum and dad would be sat there watching, and they'd be sort of loving it. But yeah, so that's how it started. That's where the show started, and I knew like, from then that I could do it, and I was confident enough to play in front of people live.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's where it started, and then it obviously, as you get older, that's when I got into football, and doing shows and things kind of wore off a bit, and I wasn't doing that as much. I was just playing it, in the bedroom or whatever, and singing. But football for me, then when you're playing with your mates in school and that, you just kind of want to be a footballer then, for me anyway.
Yeah. I
So
think that see the amount of bands that started through
yeah,
meeting each other, playing football, or realizing they weren't good enough to play football, so then
yeah,
forced to pick up the guitar. It's a well trodden path.
it is. It is. I think a lot of bands, yeah, like you said, have done that, and then they realise they're not good enough to play football.
Yeah.
Um, at a professional level. I think I'm all right, but I still try and play now on a Saturday.
Mm.
Um, and I won fans player of the year. I'm just putting that out there last season. So yeah. So I'm still trying. But no, I'm never going to make it. But yeah. But I think that is a road that a lot of young lads do when they're into football and music at that age, from like I'd say 13 to 17, 18.
Yeah.
I think they're more into the football side of things because they don't really know what to do with music at that age. Do you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
kind of
The funny thing is with it
I
as
know.
well, I mean, like a lot of the football sporty type people have got no interest in the music side. You get
Yeah,
that quite a bit. Obviously, I spoke to James for Las Vegas. He was a professional footballer,
yeah,
um,
yeah. He
and
was. We did a tour with it. We did a tour with them.
yeah, and
It
he
was good,
couldn't
James.
cut it. He couldn't cut
Yeah,
it in the dressing room. He didn't. He couldn't
yeah,
get on with the banter in the dressing room, and nobody understood why he was bringing a guitar in and stuff like that. And he ended up he fell out of love with football,
yeah,
and he got into music pretty late, really.
yeah, yeah.
So
It was it. Yeah, I mean, we did a podcast. No, not podcast. What am I about? We did a tour podcast. Where that come from? We did we did a tour with Las Vegas about a year before I left Catfish. And it was amazing, brilliant, brilliant time with them. And yeah, James and his brother,
his cousin Rab,
cousin, yeah,
uh,
Rab, yeah. And they had the girl drummer as well on at the time. Forgotten her
yeah,
name.
Caroline.
I'm
Was it?
terrible,
Oh
terrible
no,
with names.
is it Swedish lassie?
The Swedish girl, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Because I
yeah,
can mind seeing them right at the start. They had a female drummer right at the start as well.
yeah.
Um,
Is it Jonah or something like that? I can't
yeah,
remember
that's
that.
it. Yeah.
So yeah, they because we obviously thought we were decent at football, so we kind of have a kick about, before the gig and stuff outside in the car park,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell he's a bit of a player, like he could play,
Mm.
because we always fancied ourselves, like against any band and against any bands, and we'd be like, right, we'll get on the soccer sixes and all that, and we'll smash everyone. But he was a decent player, James.
Yeah, that would be a good pairing as well. I'm pretty sure James is a big Elvis fan as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah,
that must have been nice for you to
yeah.
hook up. I don't know if he's ever spoke about that.
It was a great, yeah, it was. It was a great pairing to go out on tour because we just signed as well to Communion Records at the time. So we were kind of just sort of making, headway with pulling more fans in around, and then just doing a tour with them. You kind of just, it's that next level of learning the
Mm-hmm.
ropes and learning how to be a professional touring band, and they taught us a lot. And we were kind of watching side stage and what they'd do and how they'd sort of set up and sort of conduct themselves. And we learned a hell of a lot off them. We learned a hell of a. I mean, I didn't when we went on about to go on tour with them. I was like, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a massive fan. And then as soon as we got on, and they sound checked the first day we played with them, I was like, geez, it's just like a wall of sound. It's
Yeah.
but a wall of sound that's not like Oasis. It's kind of, the drums are just banging. They're just constant, beautiful beat going through. But she stood up as well while she's playing, and then Rab's guitar is just like, in your face. And
Yeah.
just got a great voice. It was just amazing.
I was kind of the same though when I first
Yeah.
seen them. It took me a while to get into them. Obviously, I'm a big fan of The View.
Mm.
Um, so obviously Las Vegas are totally different for The View. I always seen it that way as well. Pete Doherty kind of picked The View and Carol Barat picked Las Vegas, and they both championed these different bands. I thought it was kind of another part of the Libertines rivalry, kind
Yeah.
of playing it like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, touching back to them at school and the football and all that. So, is that when you met the rest of the band?
Yeah. Ben, the bass player, was in my year in school, and he was on my team in football and through lessons and stuff like that. So we were close. We knew each other since year 7, start of secondary school. Van was 2 years below, and he was in my brother's year in school. So he was young as well for his year. He was born in August, so he was like three years younger than me, pretty much. Um, and he was like, Billy, can you teach me how to play guitar? Like you great on guitar. And same with Ben as well. Ben at the time was he was a massive like Metallica fan, and he liked he liked all sorts. Like he was a massive Radiohead and Metallica fan, but he was just said, "Can you teach me?" So I was basically teaching him a bit of both, and then saying, because then YouTube was started taking off, and I was like, use YouTube as well. Do you know what I mean? That'll that'll sort you out. So I was teaching him the basics, and then Van picked it up really quickly. To be fair, really, really, really quick, and because he was as enthusiastic as I was when I first started, and then you could see it. You could see he had it in him to, you know, take it far. He had. I don't think he was diagnosed with like ADHD, but he was full on. He was always. He wasn't like a naughty kid, but I think because he just had so much energy, he was constantly, just getting into trouble and just pecking teachers' heads, and he was best mates with my brother, and they would just sort of mess about and piss about in school. And they were just kind of going through the motions. They were looking for something else that was a bit more exciting than just going through and doing your exams and all that.
Yeah.
So it was, for him, he was, as soon as he saw guitar, I think that was it. He's a very good footballer as well as Van. Ben, again, another good footballer, but it was once we got to 17 and we were in sixth form, that was it. Then we were like, right, we're starting a band, and football just gone. You know what I mean? We just stopped playing completely. I didn't play for since I didn't play football then until I left Catfish about 8 years later. So it was as soon as sixth form, we were all in sixth form. Well, Riot Van was in year 10 at the time. That was it. We just music from then on. And we started a band. We got John Barr in as well. He wasn't into football, but he was in mine and Ben's year in school, and he was a solid drummer, very very solid drummer. So we were like, "Do you want to be in the band?" He didn't really look the part in terms of like us three at the time. He was a little bit more. I mean, I say now I'm wearing a vest now, but he'd wear vests like all year round. I'm wearing, I'm wearing one because it's hot, but yeah, he's one of them. He'd wear it all year round just to sort of show. He was getting tattoos at a young age, and he just wanted to sort of show his tattoos and his arms off. And he wasn't really on our level. Great lad, still bump into him now when I'm walking around town or whatever. But he just didn't fit the band. But for the time, we were like, he's a solid drummer, so we got him in. And that's when it started, and we we were like first name that we came up with was the Prestige.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the film had just come out at the time, the Prestige.
Right.
So we were like, right, let's call our band name the Prestige. So it went from there, and I think for about a year we had that name or two. And we were traveling in Van's Van's dad's Renault Kangoo. He'd get us all in the back with all the gear, totally illegal. No seats. We just literally crammed up with all the gear in the back, and he'd take us off to Manchester and Liverpool and places like that, and Chester and Birmingham or whatever. And we just go and do it for free, do gigs for free, support whatever bands were local there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we just at that time we just kind of like happy-go-lucky lads, just didn't really care as long as we were playing gigs, and then fell out of school. Terrible sort of grades, and just that was it. We just knew we that was what we wanted to do. And there was a lot of bands that at the time that were local that were kind of like rival bands, but you just kind of knew that we were, even at that stage, even though we were doing covers, we only did covers for about 6 months a year, and then we were like, right, we need to write our own stuff. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
other bands weren't as, you know, they just weren't as progressive as us. You know what I mean? We were like,
Yeah.
bang, 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 right, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to go out and play in Manchester, we need to go out and play in Liverpool, and we didn't care how we did it, we just did it. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So
So were these rehearsing? How
yeah, we
often
had a little
rehearsing?
rehearsals. We had a little rehearsal space that we used to pay for. The guy who owned it as well was a drummer in a band, and I think he knew as well, and he used to say, "You guys have got something," um, and he'd sort of be listening in before he'd come and sort of tell us to get out. When our time's up, he'd,
Mm-hmm.
he'd come out, he'd come lock the shutters and that, and he'd be like, "Fucking hell, I've just been listening to you guys, and I can't believe you're only 15." Well, right, Van was 15, I was 17 or whatever, and he was like, "I can't believe how good you are for your age." So you kind of knew there was a bit of a spark there, but at the time you're still going through the motions of just enjoying it and writing songs and having a laugh with your bandmates and best friends. And you don't really think about anything at that point. You don't really think about labels and all that until you're a few years kind of down the line, where you started doing it for a few years and you're like, right, we need to something needs to happen now. Do you know what I mean? Because we were like, it took us, I think it was 7 years from the start to when we got signed to the first label. So it's not a long time really in hindsight, but when you're doing it, it feels like a long time. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? When all your mates are getting good jobs and going through uni and starting to earn some good money, and we're all on the dole, and just any sort of money we can get, we will sort of do it. You know what I mean? Any sort of part-time work or whatever. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I
Well,
used to
this
do
is the thing as well, because it costs you a lot of money as well. You're a lot of the time if you're playing gigs at that point, you're probably losing money as well if you're traveling and having to stay.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you're doing that
hemorrhaging
in
money.
order to win a fan base, aren't you? So
Yeah, that's it. That's where it starts. You're hemorrhaging money at the time because you're relying on sort of parents to give you a bit of money here and there if they can. Um, Even though we didn't rely on them, but it was. I mean, Van's mum and dad were quite well off. Say, not they weren't rich by any means, but they would put any. I mean, they bought us a van to go on tour. They bought us Twisted Wheels van. Do you remember Twisted Wheel?
yeah, Johnny Brown.
Johnny Brown, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
obviously still good friends with Johnny. But we bought their tour van off them in 2011 or something like that. So for a few years, that as soon as we had that van, we were like, right. I mean, even though we were lucky enough for Van's dad to buy it for us, we weren't the kind of people that would just be like, right, well, we've got a van, but what we're going to do with it? We were like, straight away, we're going to gig
Yeah.
every fucking city around the UK with it. Do you know what I mean? And we do tours for months on end. And then that's when we were signing up for job seekers allowance, and it was getting to the point where you have to go. Well, I don't know if you know, whatever, you have to go in for your meetings and say, oh, they ask you what have you done to search for a job this week, whatever. And it was getting to the point where we were doing so many gigs that we couldn't even attend the meetings. so they, so we were like, oh, I'm ill, we're saying you're ill or making up excuses why you can't go and stuff like that. And it was only 50 quid a week, but it was enough for us to get by because we didn't have bills. We were living at home. There was no bills of mortgages and all that bollocks. So
Yeah.
you 50 quid a week was plenty for us. You know what I mean? We as long as we had enough to go get a bit of petrol, get some food, and go on tour. That was all we wanted. So yeah, I think that just the drive was there from the start with all of us.
Yeah. I think if you can all look around the room and look at each other and you know how much you all want it, that's when you realise.
Yeah, yeah. There's a spark. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the one person that I said earlier that wasn't kind of on the same level was the drummer. Now he actually had a job um, at the time, and he saved quite a bit of money. So to him, money was more of an object to him. It was more of something that he wanted to, you know, he wanted nice things and that, and we weren't bothered about nice things, or we weren't sort of jealous of our mates.
Mm.
All we wanted was to just play music. Whereas John, the drummer at the time, he wanted to. He had a girlfriend as well and things like that, which sometimes get in the way. Um, and that's when we got the new drummer in because he just said I can't really commit to it anymore. And we got this new drummer in, Bob Hall, who came in. Um, and he just blew us away I mean, he was younger than Van at the time, so he was only 16, I think, when he came into the band, or 17, something like that. Such a young age. I think he'd won or come runner up in Young Drummer of the Year 2009, something like that. And
Right.
we watched his YouTube clip of him doing his audition for Young Drummer of the Year, and I was just like, I couldn't believe how good he was. So we were like, right, get into the studio. Let's have a practice with him. He came in, he'd rehearsed all the songs beforehand. He played this one song, and halfway through the song, Van just went, stop, stop. So we stopped the song. I thought he was going to bollock Bob for something. I thought he was going to say, you've done this wrong, you've done that wrong. And he just went, you're in the band. He's just like, that is, with no disrespect to John Barr, because John was a solid drummer, but
Yeah.
Bob was just an absolute animal at like 16, 17, whatever age he was at the time. He was only young, absolute animal. He was just incredible. I've never heard anything like it. Still to this day, like, he's still the best drummer that I've ever seen live, ever played with. Just incredible. So he got in the band like a flash. And then from then he had the same attitude as us. He just wanted to be on tour. Um, and that's when you knew then the chemistry was really sort of working between us as a band.
Mhm.
Um,
Did you at this point? Did you have management?
we did, yeah, we did. But it was from Twisted Wheel again. The roadie from Twisted Wheel, Craig Vegas, he's called. He was roadieing for Twisted Wheel, and we played in this little venue in Lee. And Johnny Brown was doing an acoustic set, and my memory's a little bit hazy. So Craig Craig Vegas, who's actually managing us now with HAiG, the band
Right.
HAiG now. So if he listens to this, he'd probably correct me. But it goes along the lines of something like he was roadieing for Johnny Brown, And then we had the gig. We were supporting Johnny. We played the gig, and at the time, we when you're young, you think you're like fucking Liam Gallagher and Noel Gallagher, and the sound wasn't right. So I was having to go at the sound engineer. I was saying, "Fucking hell, turn this up or turn that down or whatever." You know, the monitors are shit. Basically, I was just swearing at him over the mic. And after the gig, Craig Vegas came over and he went, "Your band's great. Your band sound great, but you can't talk to the sound engineer like that. The sound engineer is your best friend because if you get on his bad side, he can
Yeah.
make you sound shit." You know what I mean? So you learn lessons obviously at that age. But you see people like Liam Gallagher and all these people that have got a bit of swagger about them and rock and roll, and you think, and Pete Doherty and all them, and you think, oh, I want to act like that. I want to be that kind of person, and act like I don't give a shit, and act like I can, you know.
Yeah.
And you realize like straight away, as soon as someone puts you in your place like that, you're like, you know, that's not me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to
It
be more.
doesn't
You
cut
got to
it
be more
that
yourself.
as well, didn't it? No, that sort of behaviour doesn't work these days. I mean, I don't think even Liam Gallagher would behave like Liam Gallagher now.
No, I don't think he would. I don't think he would. Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got your divas like Elton John and whatever, and Beyonce and Adele and all them. And Sam Smith and that. There's always going to be divas out there but it's and they can still be massive and be successful. But if that's not you and that's not who you are, then
Yeah.
why are you trying to be someone you're not? You know what I mean? And that wasn't me. So I straight away kind of was like, yeah, you're right. Um, and it was a lesson, and many one of many lessons that you learn along the way at that age. Um, because rock and roll isn't always about being disrespectful to people. You know what I mean? It's about you can have a laugh, have a good time, enjoy yourself, but you've got to be respectful to people like sound engineers and fans and people that come in and watch your gigs and that. And otherwise, you ain't going to make it. And if you do make it, then it's the only reason why you've made it is because of those people. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's because of the fans that you do make it in the first place. So
So
yeah,
when did the the band name come about? Then obviously you said you were called the Prestige.
yeah, the band, it was one of them. It was he came in. Van had gone on holiday to Australia, and there was a busker. And this story's been told a lot by Van, I think himself in interviews. But there was a busker who was on the street playing bottles.
Hmm.
He was really good, really good. And I've befriended him obviously since, and as well as the rest of the band have. And he was called Catfish the Bottlemen.
Hmm.
So that's all it comes from. That's basically where as far as the story goes, really. He came into the studio one day and he said, "We're changing the name because the Prestige is shit and we want something that's going to stand out." So I was like, Catfish and the Bottlemen. It sounds a bit folky. That it sounds a bit like a folk band, or you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
None of us were keen on it, but Van being Van, kind of pushed it as hard as he could, and yeah, we had to back down.
Well,
So
that's just a thing, right? Because obviously there was a girl at work was raving about yours,
yeah,
and I think the album must have been out a good few months before I even bothered listening to you because I was like, what sort of name is that?
yeah,
I've made that mistake before, and I've made it again since. With Arctic Monkeys, and I was
yeah,
like, I just don't like the name. I'm not
yeah,
bothering listening to them.
yeah,
And then again with a Scottish band, the Snuts, just
yeah.
the name, you know what I mean? Um,
Mm,
and all three have ended up being like up there in my favourite bands list. But yeah,
yeah.
the name just kind of put me off at the start. Like I was like, I'm not listening to that.
I'm not
Didn't even get the
surprised.
time of day.
I'm not surprised. It's a shit name, really. It still is. I still don't like it to this day, really. I still don't think it represents a rock and roll band
Hmm.
personally, but it is what it is, and at the end of the day, the music really kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, because
And
I see
I
see
think,
the minute see the minute I listened to the album, I
yeah,
felt so bad. I thought I've wasted the last year. Everybody raving about this band, and I was just batting it off. No, I'm not listening. I'm not interested. And then these were amazing. And I
yeah,
thought, what have I done the last
yeah.
year?
Yeah, it's one of yeah. It's I think it must. It won't just be you as well. It'd be a lot of people that have done that, and it's that in itself makes me think that it was the wrong name. But
Mm,
because you could have, for me, you could have any name. It could still be the Prestige, and the music was still going to be there.
yeah,
The music was still going to do what it was going to do. Yeah, I still don't like it, but it was one of them when you're in a loud music venue and you're partying after a gig or whatever, and then someone comes over and goes, "Oh, what was your band called again?" And you're trying to shout "Catfish and the Bottlemen" over a
yeah,
DJ. It's like that was annoying. So little things like that, but yeah, it takes the shape and form of the band, doesn't it, and the music. So it kind of it all mingles into one at one point, but that's how it came about basically.
yeah.
Um,
Well, we
yeah,
got there in the end.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, you mentioned you were teaching Ben and Van the
yeah.
guitar at the start. Um, you said that Van was pretty good as well. What was the process, the writing style? How did that come about? How did the band work around that?
The writing, yeah, it was basically we'd just come out, we'd write at home, so we'd write songs at home. Um, so Van would write a song at home, and I would be writing a song at home. And we'd end up, like I said at the start, was a bit like Pete Doherty and Carl Barat, where we'd be a bit of a co. So I'd sing one song, and then he'd sing another,
Hmm.
and then he'd sing a verse, and I'd sing a chorus, and vice versa. But we'd write the songs at home on the guitar. We wouldn't really come in and jam like Chili Peppers or whatever. We weren't that kind of songwriting band. We'd bring a song in pretty much finished on acoustic guitar, and then they'd be like, right, you play lead guitar on that, you play lead guitar on my tune or whatever. And then it sort of formed where Van would write a lot. Van was just writing song after song after song. I think he was doing it. I think he was doing it on purpose because he wanted to be the lead singer. So he every practice he'd be reading them in, reading the songs in, and he'd be like, right, we're doing this one, we're doing that one, and I couldn't keep up in the end. So it kind of just fell more and more where the songs that I would be lead singer on would become less and less and less and less until the point where I just went, right, I'll be lead guitarist and you be lead singer, and
Hmm.
let's just go with that.
So
So yeah,
obviously, like listening to the balcony, and even to a certain extent the ride,
mm,
um, a lot of the songs kind of they've got the same kind of structure, like
yeah,
the verses and the chorus, like
yeah,
you maybe repeat the same line twice
yeah.
in each verse. Was that your writing style, or was that Van's? Obviously, if
No,
Van was coming to the fore.
no. Before we got signed to a record label, we were writing some really weird structures of songs. So we would write. We were a bit like Muse actually, like early Muse kind of thing.
Hmm.
I don't mean sound wise. And then we'd write a bridge and a chorus, but then we'd do a completely different second verse, a completely different bridge. I don't mean just different lyrics, like different songs, different musical structure and everything. We change it up. It was a bit like a roller coaster. It was a bit like Bohemian Rhapsody. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Every song was like that. And I think a few of them songs have been leaked on YouTube, which you can go and listen to. Um, I mean, I don't want to get involved with that because obviously I don't. I mean, Catfish the Bottom and own them songs, but and I just say no, I haven't leaked them on YouTube. but they're on there. So if you do type them in and put early demos in or whatever, some stuff will come up about what we used to do, and you'll get an idea of how we used to write songs. And I used to love that, because it was like, who gives a shit about the normal structure of what a single should sound like? It was just like we'd go from one thing to the next, and it just, every song would be like that. And then when we got signed to Communion Records in 2013, Kev, who was managing the label, he said, you need to structure your songs in a more sort of single fashion,
Right.
you know, like the Beatles, like any band that's had massive singles in
Mm.
history. They all kind of structure in the same way, with a verse, bridge, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, ending or whatever. So Van being Van kind of took that as, you know, that this is it, religious, that,
Right.
yeah, and it's stemmed from that, basically, and that's why every song has gone that way since, I think. And
Has
apart
anybody
from
else
the
ever said
exception of
that to you?
Tyrant,
Has
huh?
anybody else ever said that, like mentioned that? Because it's
Um, no, you get criticism sometimes, or you see comments on social media sometimes saying every song sounds the same and stuff like that. And I don't think it's the same thing as saying every structure is the same, because I don't think
yeah,
every
no,
song,
no, because
I
I'm
don't
a
think
big
every
fan
song.
of the
Yeah,
two albums, and I think it's kind of similar. Like, see, like the no in terms of style, but like
yeah,
the Cooks'
yeah,
first album, you could have brought out 10 of their songs as singles,
yeah,
and it's pretty much the same with the first two Catfish albums. You could bring any song out as
yeah,
a single,
yeah,
so they're all catchy, and um, they're all really good songs. It's just funny that it's just the thing I notice, and I only notice it when I listen to Catfish, is the structure of the song. It never it never
yeah.
jumps out at me with any other band other than
Yeah. I think apart from Tyrants, the last song on the balcony, which is it strays from that a little bit, and
Mhm.
that song was written when Van was 15, which
Right.
is incredible in itself. I think when you listen to it now, um, I don't think he is quite on board with the lyrics uh, now, because it was one thing with Van was, if he wrote a song and the lyrics kind of, after a year or two, didn't resonate with him anymore, he'd sort of sack the song off, and he'd write a new one, and he didn't have any sort of emotional attachment to songs,
Right.
um, which annoyed me a little bit at times, because we had so many great songs that have fallen through the net, that a lot of people haven't heard. Um, great songs that really. It's like Arctic Monkeys now, when he says that, when he plays the first two albums, live, he says that they're not me anymore. But
Yeah.
he still plays them. Do you know what I mean? He still plays them, and they were still recorded, and they were still out there for the world to hear. And they're still great to a lot of young people now listening, or whoever. That it's still great for me. It brings back nostalgia. Listening to the first two albums. But he would just Van would sack them off before they even got to that point, where you put them on an album. Um, so a lot of people never heard them. But
What one of these songs actually just um I was one of my favourite songs that I've seen on YouTube. It's Van doing a cover, doing an acoustic, ASA.
yeah,
Was that about when you were in the band?
yeah. That was, yeah. I mean, I had a lot of input on writing that song, actually, in terms of the melody and things like that. I used a lot of my guitar lines to use them as the vocal lines. Um, as he did with a few on the balcony as well. I'd come out with a guitar line, and then he'd say, "That's too good to be a guitar line. I want to use that as the chorus." Like, well, business, for instance, business on the balcony. That
Uh-huh.
I want to make you my business. That was basically my guitar riff,
Right.
and that was my guitar line. And he said, "That's too good to just be a guitar line. I want to make that the chorus. I want to make it my business." But yeah, so he used that as the chorus. But yeah, ASA was one of them as well. So that was when we were recording the album. That was the first um, substitute song basically. So that was it was either that or and it comes back to being football fans because we were football fans. We only wanted 11 tracks on the album, so
Right.
11 tracks, 11 players. Like 11 players on the football pitch. So we weren't going to budge from any more than 11 songs on the album. But for me personally, I'd have had 13, 14 tracks on there because we
Yeah. You could have
like
stuck
like
that
the
on as like a wee hidden track or something.
it should have been. It should
The
have been.
12th man.
It should have been. It should have been. Yeah, like the manager or whatever.
Yeah.
Or subs. But yeah, the like the Kooks first album is 13 is I think 13 tracks or 14 tracks, and
Yeah, it's quite
they're
a
all
bit. Aye.
bangers. They're all bangers, and we had enough tracks to make 13 or 14 tracks that were all bangers on the first album. But because um Van had this in his head that he wanted 11 because of 11, players in a football team, one or two had to be sacrificed, and ASA was sacrificed.
I'd like to take the time to thank a couple of truly wonderful human beings. Firstly, Stevie Moffat has been producing my artwork since day one. He's always supported the podcast and helped out whilst juggling the Supercool Indie Night and running Claremont Colts, a football team for disabled children. Thanks, Stevie. I couldn't do this without you. Secondly, I'd like to thank Stuart Robertson, who manages This Is War. After having the band on the podcast in episode 42, Stuart has become a friend. Over the next few weeks, you'll notice the guests coming on the podcast, and the majority of these guests have been lined up thanks to Stuart. Thanks again, mate. Your contacts are greatly appreciated, and I'd urge you all to go back and listen to episode 42 and check out This Is War wherever you get your music.
Right. Yeah. We so just before we went to we signed to the label Communion in 2013, and we didn't really realize what was going on at that time. We didn't realize that it was going to go to what the levels that it was going to go at. We just thought it was Ben from Mumford and Sons who owns the label,
Right.
the keyboard player who plays for Mumford and Sons, and he owned the label, and along with Kev, who was the one that I spoke about earlier, who told us we need to structure our songs more like singles. He was the one that saw us at a gig in London and said, I need to sign you guys. Absolutely amazing. And you hear that a lot as bands. I want to sign you. You should be signed to a record label, and you don't really think, oh, this is going to be it. You know what I mean? It's like when Oasis got signed, they were like to Alan McGee. Who are you kind of things. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's you don't realize who you're speaking to sometimes. And we just kind of took it with a pinch of salt, and then next thing they're offering you a contract, and you're like, whoa, this is pretty serious. So, but for a year or so, because the Communion were quite a sort of indie label, quite a small label, but I think they'd only really worked with folk acts before, folk artists and stuff like that. So they haven't really taken on a rock band. So it was a bit of they were treading in new water, and but they had kind of like a sub deal with Island Records. So if anything that did kind of take off, they'd let them go to Island Records, you know, in the major label, and it's kind of like a, you know, graduating kind of thing. You know, if things start taking off in Communion and they can't handle you anymore, they'll let you off to Island Records. But the first album, like The Balcony, is still assigned to Communion Records.
Right.
Um, so it's that like natural progression. So it was perfect. It was perfect for us as a band because we kind of for a year or so were signed to a small label, and we were still figuring out. And that's when we were touring with Las Vegas. And you know, we spoke about Las Vegas before we started the podcast, and yeah, that was amazing time touring with Las Vegas, and we learned a hell of a lot on that tour. Um, but yeah, getting into so we then had a gig at Camden Barfly, London Barfly, and there was about it was sold out, and I don't think we'd ever sold out a gig before. We'd only played to still only played to a few, you know, 30, 40, 50 people, uh, you know, and that was it really. And we sold out Barfly, but I think half of them were from the industry, or half of them were from the label that were coming to sign us. And you're looking out there, and we'd met them all before, but they wanted to see us the first time, and that was the first time where you kind of like, you know, you just looking back at all the sort of people from the Island Records,
Mm-hmm.
and it was nervous. I was nervous, but you you've done it so many times. It's just like muscle memory. You just kind of do it and go through the gig, and it was we smashed it. And Ben from Mumford and Sons and all that was there at the end, and Van's dad was there, and he was like, "You've just signed to a major label and stuff." So I was still signed on to Job Seekers at the time, and I had a meeting the next day. Um, so you just gone from that high of signing to a major record label to then realizing you're still signed on Job Seekers allowance. So we drove through the night from London back to Llandudno, which is about a 6 hour drive. Just buzzing, like no one sort of sleeps on the way home. We're all chatting and we're all like excited. And like, you know, this is it. We're on our way now. We're gonna do something massive here. And I go to the meeting, and I thought I'll try and milk them for another few more weeks. You know what I mean? I can try and get as much money as I can still, while because we still weren't earning any money, even though we were signed to a major record label. We still weren't on. We still didn't even take a wage then, so we were still skin, even though we'd signed. Um, and the woman, when I got there, she was like, "Right, so because I made up a bit of an excuse why I couldn't go to the last bit. I said that I was at a funeral or something like that." And she said, "Oh, you said you were at a funeral on these dates, but I've just checked your Facebook, and it says that you were gigging in London or Scotland or wherever it was at the time, on this date that you've said you attended a funeral." And I know it's bad for me, but I don't care. So, so I was just, you know, I didn't even say, I didn't even try and think. I just put my hands up, and I thought, I just signed. I didn't say this, but I thought I've just signed a major record label.
Yeah.
I said, you've caught me, and I just laughed. I was just laughing as she was saying, because she kept on reading off these gig dates and with all these places that I'd said I'd been when I hadn't, and she brought up the whole tour. I was like, "How did you know I was in Catfish and The Bottlemen?" She said, "Well, you're starting to get a bit of a name for yourself around here now, because it was only a small town where I'm from." So I just said, "Right, okay, you've got me." So I walked out and signed off, and that was the last time I ever went to the job seekers allowance. But yeah, so from there it was like then you realise then you start getting paid a wage, and it's, you know, it's the big time then, and then you're playing the first festival where I ever thought it was kicking off was Tea in the Park.
Right.
I missed that festival. What a festival that was.
Yeah, it's
Um,
totally different, and it
yeah,
transmits no the
yeah.
same.
Well, we did transmit as well, and that was good. We enjoyed that. I think it was in where was that? Was that in Glasgow? I think
Yeah.
when we did it in 2014. But we played Tea in the Park the year before, was it? Oh no, actually, no, yeah, the year before, and that was when you realised that it was kicking off. Everyone was singing back the singles that we just released. Um, it was just Scottish crowds again. Everyone mentions the Scottish crowds, but for me,
Yeah.
like as I'll repeat it, they're the best by far. And that was like the moment where we knew things were kicking off. Everyone was singing back Kathleen that we just released, and it was on Radio One. And that's when you sort of realise things are taking off. Then, um, and then we did the whole festival season through 2014, massive festivals, and then I left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you left before the album came out, didn't you? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So the album hadn't even come out when I left in July, and the album came out in September.
So how hard is that? Like, obviously you've been involved in all those songs, um, and then for you to leave the band before it comes out, do you kind of can you still listen to that album?
Oh yeah,
Obviously,
yeah, yeah. I mean, at the time when I did leave, it was it wasn't something that I wanted to happen. I didn't want to leave the band. Um, it was yeah. I mean, I've been asked this question on more times than any question I've ever been asked. Like, I still get asked by people on in my DMs on Instagram and Facebook and all sorts saying, I don't want to cause any sort of trouble, but why did you leave Catfish and the Bottom? And I'm like, well, if I've not told any, enemy magazines or whatever, then I'm not really going to tell you.
yeah,
But no, I don't mean that in a sort of disrespectful way. It's just one of those things where I don't want to, you know,
yeah. That's
there's
totally understandable. That's
there's
something
nothing.
between you and the rest of the band, and
Yeah,
um,
things happen in the back, and it's nothing that's happened major. It's just things that happen over time. Where you you know, I think a lot of the answers have come in a way from Bob and Bondi leaving as well last year. So um, I think people can sort of guess for themselves now where the issues may have been,
yeah,
but that's not to take away anything from what happened in the band and how much I enjoyed it whilst I was in the band. It was a great time, and when I did leave, I was distraught. I didn't pick up the guitar for about 2 or 3 months. I didn't even touch it. Never mind think about playing it.
yeah,
And I'm quite a I'm quite a positive person. I'm not one of those kind of people that you know I don't go. Oh, I was gonna whatever commit suicide or whatever. I'm not that kind of person. But it was a bit of a dark time. Um,
it's a big
and
part of your life as well, isn't it?
yeah,
I mean, you've been doing that for you left school,
yeah,
and then for it to come to an abrupt end,
yeah,
it is kind of sort of similar to like a death in a way. You're kind of grieving for something, but
yeah. It was a bit. My mum describes it as that a little bit because I think she was worse than me. She was more grieving for it than me because she knew how much sacrifice put into it. My mum sort of remortgaged the house and all sorts just to make sure that she could try and help out where she could.
mm-hmm.
Um, and she, brought up me and my brother because my dad passed away when I was 11. So my mum brought us up from that point on her own. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into sort of like sob story shit, because that's not me, and I've never been like that. But
Yeah.
she put a lot of sacrifice in it basically, and we did as and I did it. I did being in the band because obviously, like I said, was on job seekers allowance, and it's not like a thing to say. It's not you're not. It's not something you're proud of saying you're on job seekers or on the dole or whatever, because the only reason why we went on that was because the sacrifices you need to make to be the best band
Mhm.
is you need to have time, and you need to have time to go and gig and tour. And if you're working a full-time job, you literally can't put all the time and effort into a band that you want. So that's the only reason why I went on the dole. You know what I mean? There's people sort of going on the dole because they just can't be arsed working. But for me, the dole was more like a sort of funding. Do you know what I mean? I used
Yeah.
it. I used it as a funding to get where I wanted to be with the band. So it wasn't like I was using the taxpayers' money for, just to sit on my ass all day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I had Jack Jones on a couple of episodes ago, and he kind of
Yeah,
done the same thing. He was
yeah,
using some allowance
yeah,
for his housing, and he was staying. He was living out his van and using that money to fund the band.
yeah. That's what we did. That's exactly what we did. I think a lot of artists have done that around our age. I think it's a lot more difficult now to get on it,
Yeah.
to get on job seekers now. But um, so it's even harder for bands now that genuinely want to make it, and they're only using job seekers as just the funding for that. Um, but there are other ways of getting grants out there,
Hmm.
that you can sort of go down. We got a grant, the Art Council of Wales, for the Wry Smiles when I joined the Wry Smiles after Catfish. Um, we got a funding for that, which helped with the band to tour, because again they were in a position. I was starting to earn more money from royalties and things then, so I was putting funding into the band myself.
Right.
And once the balcony sort of had recouped all its costs from everything, and it was starting to make money, I was obviously getting paid for that, and I was putting everything into it. I bought a tour van, and I was putting all the money into the band, and the band members that were with us at the time, they were all young lads who were like me a few years previous, that were doing exactly what I was doing before, a few years before. So I wasn't relying on them to go and get jobs and make, have money and stuff. So I was funding it all basically.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And like obviously going back a wee bit then, like when did you decide? Obviously, you said you couldn't pick up a guitar for a couple of months after leaving. So when did you decide, and what was kind of the reason for getting back into music?
well, just because what else am I going to do? I've spent 8 years, 8 years of my life working for something, sacrificing, not having a normal job, not having the things that all my mates were having, and for that basically. And when it did happen, it was kind of, not taken away from me, but whatever happened. So I thought, I'm not gonna, let all that go to waste. I'm gonna do what I want to do now, and get back on the horse again. And that was all it was really. And I started writing songs, and I hadn't written songs since the early days of Catfish, when I mentioned earlier on about us both writing together. So that was when I kind of thought, right, I can start writing songs again. I know I can write songs. I just need to get into the groove. And I started getting into a good groove.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent the songs to the guy Kev. I still was in touch with Kev, who was in charge of the label at Communion, um, that had signed Catfish a couple of years previous. And I said, "Can you just have a listen to these songs for me and tell me what you think?" And yeah, and he said, "Yeah, they sound great. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'm proud of you for carrying on." And that gave me a good inspiration to just thought, right, I'm gonna, yeah, I know I'm good enough. I know I'm good enough to do it. If he thinks they're good enough, then
Yeah.
And he thought the Catfish songs were great. Then, and I know I've got something. So it was just regaining that confidence again, because when your confidence has been knocked like that, then it's about getting that confidence back and that belief back that you can
Yeah.
do.
But deep down, you must have knew obviously you'd you'd been there at the start, and you got to that level with Catfish.
Mhm.
You know you can do that,
Yeah,
and it's just about doing it again.
yeah.
Uh, so how did you go about then getting a band together, or was it just solo stuff to start with?
Yeah, I did a tour solo first because I wanted to get my confidence and I wanted to put myself in the deep end and play. You know, it's always harder playing solo gigs because it's just you're on your own. You've got no bands to look at and laugh at and enjoy, and you've got no big sound behind you to sort of cover every whatever, you know, just basically blow people's heads off. You've just got an acoustic guitar, you're singing, and it's raw. And I thought I'm going to do a month or two touring like that first before I even get a band together. And it was great. I went out with my brother. My brother came with me. He was tour managing, roading for me, and we did that together. And the response I got back off the tracks that I'd written at the time were great. Everyone was loving the new songs. That I was going to these places and gigging. Even though they were small venues, I'd gone back from like five, we'd sent out five, four, 500, 600 caps just before I left, and doing massive festivals. Then going back to doing the little 100 cap rooms and not even filling them kind of thing.
Yeah,
So it was going back, but it was great, and I loved it. And I was just testing the waters, and people were giving me confidence again by saying your voice is great, your songs are great, and it wasn't like obviously listening to that and being big headed. It was just like I needed that to get me confidence going again. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Just needed a little bit of a booster. So it was nice. And then I thought, right, I need to get a band together because I just miss playing loud music. So I started at the studio with Simon Jones from the Verve, the bass player from the Verve.
right.
He owned a studio in Chester, which is only about 45 minutes away from me. And he said, "Oh, did you used to be in a band?" So I mentioned Catfish, whatever, and he's like, "Oh, I've heard of them." And then he was like, "Well, I'll help you audition. Then I'll help you audition." I was like, "Oh, nice one." So he was like, "I'll get people on, but I'll get people down to the studio. I know loads of people. I'll put the adverts out and stuff." So he was amazing. He put out some adverts, and we got people down to audition. Told them a few songs to learn, a few of my new songs or whatever. They learnt them, and we had a jam, and we got the drummer from them auditions and the bass player. And then the guitarist was a friend with the drummer that we just got. So it all
Mm.
came together really quickly. And I thank Simon Jones from the Verve. He was he was great at that point there when I needed someone. Um, and we rehearsed in his studio then for a good, well, for the whole period of Billy Bibby and the Wry Smiles. Um, like I said, I bought a tour van myself because I had enough money then from the royalties and money that I'd earned from the balcony, and we basically just went on tour for then 2 or 3 years. And we never obviously got to the heights of Catfish, but we had an amazing time, and they were great lads. Absolutely loved being out on tour with them. We played up in Scotland, down in London, played all over the UK, and the tracks did well. Not to the sort of obviously success of Catfish, but it was more like a little cult band thing, and it did well, and I really enjoyed it. And then a couple of the lads from the band, they were getting older, and they wanted to go to uni and do their own thing, and I just said, well, I said, we haven't made it in terms of made it financially, made it and all what have you. So I said, well, I can't force you to stay or whatever you do. You go and do off and do what you want to do. So that's when the band kind of we got a few new members in after that, but it was never really the same after that. So that's when I kind of had a bit of time out from music again, and then we started the band called HAiG,
Uh-huh.
which kind of came full circle really because I'm from Accrington, and the two lads that I'm now in the band with are from Blackburn, which is only down the road from Accrington.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I did a gig in Blackburn at the Blackburn Rovers Stadium at Ewood Park, and the guy who put the gig on said after the gig, he said I'm in a band, and we're missing. We've just split up, and it's just me and the drummer now, and the singer and the bass player have left. So I said, oh, I said I'm in the same position. I said I've just split up with the Wry Smiles, but I've just got a guitarist with me. He still wants to do it. So we joined forces basically, bass and drums on their part, and guitar and singing on our part. And yeah, and we had a few rehearsals together, and it was amazing. We just kind of clicked, and it was brilliant. And we've just gone from there with that. So we're still gigging now, and still enjoying it. Yeah, still
Yeah.
enjoying what we're doing.
So obviously on Spotify,
Yeah.
the Wry Smiles have an album out in 2022.
Yeah,
So,
that was that was from me though. That was an
so is that
acoustic
just a
album.
solo?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
just a solo acoustic album that I put out last year. The story behind that was the first producer that we ever had. His name's Russ, and he's a local producer around North Wales. He produced all the early Catfish stuff and a lot of the demos that I mentioned before that are on YouTube that I didn't put on there.
Hmm.
And and he unfortunately had a brain aneurysm last year, and
Right.
and it was very, very, very serious. He nearly died, and fortunately, he had an operation. They managed to, you know, do magical things, and he's still alive now, and he's back working again after a year out.
That's brilliant.
Um, but I'd recorded some stuff with him acoustically, and I had it sitting around and waiting for a while. We were booked in the studio to finish it off, but I couldn't finish it off obviously because he was still recovering. And I thought I had a program on my laptop, and I thought I can just tweak a few little bits. I'm obviously not no producer. I'm nowhere near the producer as Russ, but I tried to do a few little tweaks just to get it to a stage where I thought I was happy to release it. And I thought I'm going to release these songs, and I just released it as a solo album, more of sort of like a homage to him really, and that kind of like, you know, I wanted to just sort of get it out there, and so we've done these songs together or whatever. I want to finish the songs properly now with him now that he's back working again. But it was like, at the time when things weren't great and looking great because he was in a bad way. I just wanted to get them songs out there. Uh,
Yeah, it's an amazing kind of thing to do, isn't it? Like, is a
yeah,
some sort of I'm trying to think of the word.
just a
Uh,
dedication. It was more like a
yeah.
dedication to him. It was like these songs are for you kind of thing, and they were just raw. Most of them were just raw, but he's such a good producer that they kind of held their own. I think just the way they sound, just acoustically and not even mixed or properly mastered.
Hmm.
So I just thought I'm going to put them out there. He'll probably hate me for it because they're not finished, but I just thought, nah, I'm gonna put them out there. And he's an amazing bloke, best musician I've ever been around. Like he can play any instrument you can think of. He can put 10 harmonies on a vocal track. You know what I mean? He's just incredible and should really be a lot more well known than he is. But he's a local legend around here, and like everybody knows that. So, I think he's happy with that.
What's his name? Just so we can.
Russ HAiG. Russ HAiG he's called. He owns Orange Recording Studios in North Wales. But yeah, he's a bit of a local legend, and yeah, and he recorded the first early Catfish stuff, and yeah, so I'm glad we sort of started with him. He taught us a lot in terms of recording and how to do the recording process with Catfish.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Top man.
One of the songs I was listening to the album today, and obviously I was listening to singles the other night on my way to work.
Yeah.
And the one that stands out to me is "Are You Ready?"
Yeah.
That could be that could be on a Catfish album. No bother. I think that's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a cracking song.
I think that's maybe the most Catfish one out of the lot, actually. Yeah, that's one of my personal favorites,
But
definitely.
listening to it on the album the day as well, it totally changes it as well. The acoustic side it as well, but it
Yeah,
brings a
on the piano,
totally
that's Russ
different
on the
vibe.
piano.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's Russ
I,
playing the piano, that one, yeah.
yeah, it was really good. Again, that was a standout for the album as well
Yeah,
as the
yeah,
singles.
yeah,
So obviously, then you briefly mentioned HAiG. So
yeah.
you've had a few singles hitting this. What's the plans going forward?
I think we obviously, I mean, we signed to a record label, a few when we first started, to an Australian record label. Uh, but things didn't go to plan with that. Um, and then COVID hit, so it was a bit of a nightmare with COVID and all that for a couple of years, where we were
Yeah,
not being able to tour properly or whatever. So that was a bit of a pain in the ass. But yeah, we've just released a new EP, and that's got 4 tracks on it. So we released that early this year, and then we just want to get out. We're just playing gigs and stuff. We're not. I mean, I'm 33 now. The bass player's 30. I don't know, 37. Might be older than that. Might be doing him a favor there. And the drummer's 33. So we're not like spring chickens, but we still love doing what we're doing. And the moment it's just like I don't know how to describe it. I think it's just a good vibe. We just get on. We all know each other really well. We get each other. There's no like there's no um you know
pressure. Would you say there's no pressure to?
the pressure is kind of, I don't know. It's one of them things where if something takes off and it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not, you know, the end of the world. We're just enjoying making music, and we're enjoying touring and playing gigs to people. We played 2 gigs in one day last week, a few weeks ago in Brighton at the Great Escape Festival.
Mhm.
And we just kind of live for things like that, where you're played a gig in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, and then at 10 o'clock we played after James Walsh from Star Sailor, and he's amazing. And it was rammed, and people were just going mad, and we always put like one Catfish song in the set as well, so everyone was
Right.
going mad for that. And it just moments like that we kind of live for. You know what I mean? Just enjoying those moments where people are singing, and it might just only be 100 people or 200 people, but at the same time, you know, that
Yeah.
that that kind of gives us that high and makes us happy for a week or two. Do you know what I mean? And then we'll do it again in a few weeks' time. Um,
It's fun. I was listening to a guy. I was listening to Roy Fletcher for the Shed project today, and he was talking about when he plays gigs,
yeah,
and again talking about putting on gigs and losing money and things like that. But
yeah,
he says I'd play the gigs every day and lose money just for
yeah,
the connection you get when you're up on stage,
yeah. We did,
singing
we
to the
did,
fans.
we lost. I mean, it's a 7-hour drive to Brighton for us, and we lost a shitload of money that because we went out after it as well and got smashed. So we we spent a lot of money and petrol, fuel, and all that crap. So it wasn't profitable for us, but we just thought, fuck it, we'll do it. You know what I mean? It was a beautiful weekend weather-wise. We just had an absolute blast, and that's all it is about for us at the moment. And if things progress and get bigger and bigger, then they get bigger. But you can never put time. It's the same with catfish. Where start putting time frames on things, and you start getting edgy, and you're like you don't stop enjoying it in a way. Because there was a period during catfish where we'd be like, is there gonna be a guy from a record label there at the gig tonight? Do you reckon there's gonna be a guy from the record label? And it was that conversation every sort of few gigs where we'd be sort of talking about it. Whereas if you're talking about things like that all the time, you forget why you're doing it. You forget the enjoyment part of it. Whereas now we just do it for what it is. And if someone comes up and says, here's 100K, go and record an album, then we'll be like, right, Sean, we'll do it. But until that time happens, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. So
That's an amazing way to look at it, though, isn't it? It's just do it for the enjoyment and see what comes out of it at the end.
yeah.
So I'd like to see you up here soon as well, up Glasgow or something like that.
Yeah, well, we were booked in a few weeks ago, but my van after the Brighton gig, I've had this van for 8 years now at the start of Wry Smiles, and it didn't pass its MOT after we came back from Brighton, and he said the guy obviously in the garage, I've known him for years, and he goes, it's not looking good. The van is on its last legs. He said it's going to cost you a lot a lot of money. So I said, what do you suggest? And he said, well, to be honest with you, I think it's time to let it go. And I built a double bed in the back. I built like it got a leisure battery for it and stuff, so you can charge your phone and all that sort of stuff when we stay over. And it was just so handy for the band. If we ever didn't have a hotel, we could just stay in the van, in the bed there. And you don't realize until it's gone how much you miss it. And it died just the week before we were supposed to play Edinburgh and Glasgow a couple of weeks ago. And we were supposed to be playing up at Broadcast on the 2nd of June.
Right, that would have been good. That's a cracking venue as well.
Great venue, so great. I've played there a few times, and we hadn't been up to Scotland for about 4 years, so I was so looking forward to it. And then the van did that to us, and then it was obviously there's a point in it where you kind of go like Brighton, it cost us a lot of money to get there, and it's sometimes obviously it's great saying, oh, you can't take, we're not bothered about taking no money, but sometimes it's like you've got to you've got to weigh the options up and think, well, maybe we should just reschedule this one for another time where we're not going to lose out hundreds of pounds trying to rent vans or going up with three vehicles or whatever. So it wasn't a viable option, but we'll be up there soon, definitely.
Yeah, I'll be looking into that then for these coming up. Broadcast would be ideal. Again, I went to see the Paddington sale last year. Brilliant. A little venue like that for a band like that was that it's the exact setting that you need, man. It felt like being back in the early noughties. Felt like being back to that the days.
Yeah, it's a cracking venue. It's really
good. So obviously we've been on, I don't know, that's nearly an hour and a half or so. The last bit of the podcast, obviously it's good time for heroes, and I asked my guest to pick 4 heroes to come for dinner. Why you've picked them, why they're your heroes, and what you're going to cook them as well, just to see how good a cook you are, really. Obviously, they can be dead or alive, they can be musicians, they can be footballers, they can be whatever you want them to be. So just fire away.
Yeah. Well, three things that I love: music, football, and cooking. So cooking for me is like that is my. I love it. I live with my brother. We've got a house together, and he's great at cleaning. He's he's great at doing the hoovering, and I'm a good cook. You know, I think I'm. Um, but yeah, so I'd have. I mean, this one's a given because obviously I'm a massive Elvis fan. So Elvis would be just he'd be at the head of the table.
Hmm.
You know, he'd be there without a shadow of a doubt. Um, After that, it's quite difficult. Quite difficult. There's quite a few people that I would have there because obviously there's football. There's I like films and stuff. So movies. I love boxing. So there's boxers.
I
Um,
don't like boxing. I don't like boxing after last night. I got up this morning to see the result of the fight. Josh Taylor, Scottish boy, was fighting last night.
Yeah, I tried to stay up for it, but I fell asleep at about 3:30 in the morning. So I literally fell asleep just before they came out. But I recorded it, so I watched it first thing. Did you watch it when you
No,
woke
I've
up?
not seen it, but I just seen it get beaten.
Yeah, 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 he didn't look as good as he has done. So I've watched a few of his older fights back recently, and he looked so sharp when he was at that weight. But I think he needs to go up a weight class, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think
I think he's in that much time out as well between fights, hasn't he? Helping.
yeah. He's had quite a bit of inactivity, hasn't
Yeah.
he? But yeah, I wouldn't put Josh Taylor on the table. I don't think. I'd put if I was, I wouldn't be one of them that'd say Muhammad Ali. That I love. I mean, I admire Muhammad Ali, but I think I'd rather stick someone on like Joe Frazier or Sonny Liston and
Right.
and see what they have got to say. Do you know what I mean? Because
Right. I'll
I
let you have both of them then, and then
yeah, and
uh,
then I mean everyone. I've listened to a few of your podcasts on my journeys in the van and stuff.
thank you. That's
Uh,
amazing.
Yeah, no, I have. I've listened to the Jack Jones one and the This Is War one and a few others, and a lot of them say John Lennon. Um, I would say Paul McCartney over John Lennon, and not because I prefer Paul McCartney, but obviously I think you get more out of him.
Hmm.
I think you get more out of him as a person. I think he just any little sort of secrets and that or whatever about the band. I think
Yeah.
I think you'd uncover more from him than you would John Lennon. As much
Yeah.
as it'd be
Have
amazing
you
to have
seen
John
the
Lennon.
Have you seen the documentary?
Yeah, the Get Back one.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I've always all my life I've been John Lennon,
yeah,
John Lennon before Andy, but
yeah,
watching that documentary, you see a different side to Paul McCartney. Some of the stuff he had to go through, and he basically put that all together himself. Really,
yeah. He's like the glue. He was like the glue one. He was the glue
yeah,
in the band, really, and he's mega talented person. He can write. He could write any genre song you wanted. Like he'd do it. If you told him to write anything, he'd write it. But he's unbelievable, and I think he's quite a humble person as well. Um, so I'd have him. I mean, other mentions I'd have to say Sylvester Stallone. I'm a massive like Rocky fan, Rambo fan.
hmm
Um, he'd probably get something there, and Roy Keane as well. I'd love to have Roy Keane at the table somewhere. So
right,
we're getting more than four now, but
yeah, that's all right. And I like it when people don't stick to the rules. I like it more. It's better. So, like, obviously, Roy Keane, like, we never. You said you were into football. Now, we never touched on what team you are. Is Man United your team?
yeah, United is my team. Yeah,
Because obviously, I mean, Roy Keane as well. One of your picks ended up at Celtic.
yeah, yeah.
Probably he should probably never bothered. He should probably
No,
best retire. Know that he just we get 6 months out of him, and you could tell his knee was done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I mean, what a player! I
Well,
loved the players. Like, it seemed at that time when Roy Keane was about every team in England had like a midfielder like that,
they
like
did.
just like a half man,
Yeah.
which you don't see them anymore in like the modern game. You don't see that type of player anymore.
No, no, you don't. You don't. I don't think it allows for that kind of player at times with the way people are sort of rolling around on the floor and that. I know it started when Roy Keane was playing, but it's 10 times worse now. Um, and you just don't get that attitude from those players like Roy Keane and even like you sort of you obviously Gerrard's and Kevin Nolan's, you know what I mean, for Bolton and stuff like that. Those kind
Yeah,
of play, they were the Roy Keane, but for their own team, just not quite as good as Roy Keane. Do you know what I mean? They were, but they were doing the same kind of thing. So
hmm
like you said, there was a player like that in every team really. Um, but Roy Keane was just sort of like the top of the crop, one of the cream of the crop. But he watching him as well on ITV and all that, doing punditry, you could tell he'd
yeah,
be a good laugh to have at the dinner party because he'd say some stuff that would make you laugh.
yeah.
But
He stands up for what he believes in, doesn't he? He doesn't take any
yeah,
shite.
yeah,
Yeah, I do like him on Sky Sports and all that.
he's pretty. Yeah, brutally honest, isn't he? He's brutally honest, which I like. Um, but I think there's a softer side to him as well, and I think that Micah Richards has kind of got that out of him a little bit, which is nice to see. But yeah, no, I'd have him, Elvis. I'd go for Joe Frazier and either McCartney or Sylvester Stallone. McCartney, we'll go McCartney.
We'll just have them off. We'll pick them off.
Oh,
What I'm looking at doing, this will be like episode 40 something, 43 or 44. And what I'm planning is once we get to episode 50, I'm going to do like a league table and see who everybody's picked over these 50 episodes.
yeah.
So every time somebody doesn't pick John Lennon, it makes it a bit more competitive. Yeah, I think he must be on about 25 picks at the moment. So
Yeah. Well, you can see why. You can see why. Obviously, he was such an important figure in music and just fucking the world in general. But um, yeah, but like I said, for the reasons I said before, Paul McCartney for me because of I think you get more out of Paul McCartney at a dinner party than you would John Lennon.
yeah,
And he's lived 40 years longer as well, so he's got more to talk about.
he's got some. The one thing I would say, he's got some questionable fashion choices. See some of the trainers he wears on stage.
Oh man, yeah,
You can
yeah,
tell. You can
yeah.
tell he's showing his age with the trainers. He's an old man's trainers.
Is he on the sketches?
I think so. I think he might be getting a deal for Ringo Starr or something because he was
Yeah,
advertised.
Ringo was on the sketches, wasn't he? And Jamie Redknapp as well.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Well,
Jamie
I've
Redknapp
seen
was.
this before. I mean, I've mentioned this to the masses. Obviously, Jamie Redknapp putting his name to sketches.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that he's actually wearing them. Though.
That was a weird one. That I don't think he's wearing them at all. He's just cashing in the check there, isn't
Yeah.
he? He's just cashing in the check. So
Yeah.
yeah, what would I cook him is what you're gonna ask me next, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
So if Elvis is at the table, I'm gonna have to do burgers.
Right.
Which is what I'm gonna do once this podcast is finished. I'm gonna go and cook some burgers. So yeah, I'd have to do burgers, but that's not really my signature dish. I like to do it. I like it. I can do a good risotto. I like doing a chili, and I can do a decent Thai red curry as well.
Right.
But I'll go for burgers. I'll go for burgers because Elvis is in the building.
Yeah, he'd love that as well, wouldn't he?
You'd like a nice homemade burger, wouldn't you?
These are all the meals you were rhyming off as well. My missus has taught me to make all them in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting quite a dab hand at the risotto.
Yeah, the risotto. Yeah, it's a
Just
bit of
need
a,
to,
bit of a
you
knack
just
to
can't
risotto.
stay away from the pan, though. You need to keep stirring.
You've got to commit to it once you do risotto.
Yeah. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Billy, and you've gave us plenty of time tonight. You've been ace.
Cheers, pal.
Before we go, if anybody wants to find you, is there anywhere you want to plug or anything like
Yeah, just obviously the band that I'm in now, HAiG. So that's HAiG, same name as the whiskey, HAiG. So yeah, that we're on all social media platforms and Spotify and that. We've just got a new EP out, which was only out a few months ago. So go and give that a listen. And yeah, just stay positive. Enjoy yourselves.
Brilliant. Thank
Cheers,
you very
pal.
much for coming on the podcast.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you for having me, mate.
Cheers. Cheers, mate. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page, Time for Heroes podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.